Hello and welcome to the season finale of Mad's World Season 5, which also happens to be my 50th episode ever. Thank you all so much for joining me on this journey to 50 eps of the pod. There is and always will be so much to learn, so thank you for your patience as I learn along with you all, and thank you for giving me the space to make mistakes along the way. The way to change things is to educate in any way we can, and for me, that has included acknowledging how very little I know and being open to learning from different people every week from all walks of life. We're all learning as we go, especially me. I'm doing my very best to say the right thing all the time, which I think we all do, and we all know how challenging it is navigating this constantly changing landscapes that are sexuality, dating, relationships, and love. This week, I'm joined by Florence Barkway, YouTube sensation of Come Curious, podcast host of Fucks Given, and her latest release, Love High. In this episode, Florence and I unpick why heartbreak is so difficult, the universal feelings we all experience following a heartbreak, tangible advice, blocking or unfollowing an ex, and how to stay hopeful in the face of pain and uncertainty. This is a really personal episode for me, so I hope you enjoy listening as much as I found it healing to share and hopefully to help anyone going through it at the moment. Hi Florence, how are you?
Hey, I'm really good. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I'm very excited to have you.
Thanks for inviting me.
So let's get stuck into our speed date question round so our listeners can learn a little bit more about you prior to our discussion. So can you tell me a bit more about your YouTube channel, Come Curious, and how this sort of began?
Yeah, of course. So I've actually been doing Come Curious now with my friend Reed for 7 years, if you can believe it. Which is mad. I feel like 7 years ago, people weren't really talking about sex and stuff openly, which is, I guess, why we were starting to open up the conversation. So yeah, the YouTube channel it's like a sex advice, relationship, body positivity, sex education, mental health discussions, all of that platform where me and my friend Reed just want to open up the conversation so that people can feel more comfortable when it comes to themselves and their relationships with their sex and their bodies.
Amazing. And that makes you the perfect guest for this podcast because I think we're achieving similar things on Mad's World. So in addition to Come Curious, you also host a number of podcasts, including Fucks Given and an upcoming new podcast, which is very exciting. So can you tell me a bit more about these as well?
Yeah, so Fucks Given is a weekly podcast where we discuss everything, sex, relationship, fetish, kink, STIs, just really opening up the conversation about all the topics that you don't usually want to cover. And we also just started this amazing new thing with our guests where we get them to talk about their fuck off stories, which are like these bizarre stories that you kind of like your party trick, but in a sex story. So we get those stories on the podcast every time from our guests and also our listeners as well, which is really fun.
Amazing.
And then in 2020 at the end of it, I launched my own podcast, How to Heal a Heartbreak, which was inspired by my own struggles. It was kind of a process of wanting to heal myself and learn more about what this traumatic event was, because I before that point I don't think I'd really experienced heartbreak properly before, and then once it hit me I was just like, oh wow, this is difficult, and it's something that people don't really ever, I feel like people gloss over it and that they don't really give it the time that it deserves. Like you're grieving, so there's a whole healing process to ending a relationship. So that was what inspired the How to Heal a Heartbreak. It was my own journey through that whole experience, and since then I think it's like nearly been 2 years, which is mad. I've got my new podcast Love High coming out on Valentine's Day this year, which is kind of a transition from talking about heartbreak and figuring out like how we can really support ourselves through our healing journeys, but then also just figuring out more about love, relationships, partnerships, like everything that surrounds that, and why we kind of have grown up with such an obsession with love and being told that we are, not whole without another partner, and figuring out attachment styles, commitment issues. I literally want to bring up like every single topic to this new podcast. I'm so excited about it.
I think it's so interesting that you said that we sort of gloss over heartbreak in this way, because I think it is sort of glamorized in a way, because obviously a lot of artists lean into that, whether it's like music or whether it's art or whether it's, whether it is podcasts or whatever. It's sort of given this glamorous edge, but when you're actually going through it, it is so traumatic and it is so hard, and it's not like this glamorous, beautiful thing that you see on TV. It's just, it fucking sucks.
It's so painful, and you don't really expect it to hurt so bad.
Yeah, I mean, great topic to have a podcast on, because I think there's so much to delve into. So apart from podcasts and YouTube, what else is keeping you busy at the moment?
So I'm actually working on a book at the moment, which is really exciting. I'm in the process of working on this book where it's basically turning in how to heal heartbreak into a book that's going to help people as well, which I'm very, very passionate about, as you can tell.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really looking forward to finalizing that. I think it's going to be a long process though. I'm delving into the publishing world for the first time, and yeah, it seems to be pretty long. So maybe you'll expect that out in a couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting though. Good on you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And I've got two sort of fun questions. So, well, this one's not too fun, but what is your biggest fear?
Well, apart from like sex, heartbreaks and all of that stuff, I was like, my first reaction is sharks.
Sharks, they're so scary.
That's my big, I literally I can't swim in the sea because of sharks. Although I did actually go paddleboarding in Croatia last year.
Was there any sharks?
Well, I saw like on the island's Instagram page that they had seen dolphins, and I was like, wherever there's dolphins, there's sharks, man.
Is that a real thing? Because people say that, but I'm like, I don't know, I feel like dolphins wouldn't hang out with sharks because they'd probably get eaten.
I feel like they're always in the same kind of vibe. Like they're always in the same kind of sea.
They're just vibing.
Yeah. I think they're like low-key friends.
Low-key friends. I mean, I don't think sharks have friends, but you know what they say, fish are friends, not food. And my last question for this round is, who is your celeb crush?
Yeah, that would have to be Jake Gyllenhaal.
Is it? He's been doing a lot lately.
He's the old school favorite, and whenever he re-pops up, I'm like, oh damn, yeah, I missed you.
You're like, where have you been in my life? I think he's so cute, but I think I'm a Timothée Chalamet kind of girl at the moment. Like,
really?
Yeah, I watched Little Women the other day, and I was like, I'm sorry, but you're just iconic. Like, he's so iconic. And everything he does, I watched June, his cheekbones, his jawline, the whole thing. Yeah. I'm like, love you.
I'm weirdly not into him at all.
Have you watched him in any movies yet, though?
Yeah, I saw June.
But this is what baffles me about attraction, is that people can be attracted to people that I'm not attracted to, and vice versa.
Right? I just see him as too young for me. Like he doesn't give me that like big, powerful man vibe that I want.
Yeah, but I like a skinny boy.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I have that hang up where because I'm 5'7", so I'm not like a particularly small person. So I like to feel small in comparison to my partners.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, that's the thing with skinny boys. They always make me feel a bit fat, but I'm like, do you know what? I'm leaning into this body positivity movement. Like,
exactly.
If it means I can have IKEA meatballs for lunch, I'm going to have them.
Exactly. And I do agree. I do agree with you. And it shouldn't be a thing, but it's like hardwired into my brain. I need to date more skinny guys and get over this.
Go for them. Just seriously give it a try, because you know what? They're just like, you can put your arms all the way around them and like squeeze them, and it's just like, I don't know, they're just like a little bean. Like, it's great.
A little bean.
Like a skinny bean.
Sounds so hot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hot. Let me tell you, it's a hot little bean. Speaking of skinny little beans, so we're here to talk about our ex-boyfriends. So can you tell me about, and this doesn't have to get too deep that we get upset. I feel like we're here to inspire people. I've got a good friend. My best friend is currently going through a heartbreak, and I wanted to do this episode to help lift her up and bring her back and give her some advice. Yeah, she's really going through the ringer. So I think, could you tell me, I know it's been heavy, but could you tell me about a time when you felt heartbroken? And then I can contribute as well and tell, I've sort of touched on the time I got heartbroken in 2021 on the podcast a few times, but I've sort of I haven't been properly over it until now where I'm like ready to speak about it. So
wow,
now's the time. Here we are.
Part of my process weirdly was talking about it. So like that's why I started the first podcast. I mean, the last couple of times that I have been heartbroken were by the same person, because we broke up in summer 2020, and that was like the first time I properly experienced heartbreak. And I think it was way like really heightened as well because of the pandemic, and we had such like almost like this crazy insular like romanticized relationship where, you know, we fell in love in the middle of this pandemic, and it all just seemed so kind of crazy and romantic in this like Romeo and Juliet kind of way. And then when we kind of figured like life was getting back to like a little bit back to normal, not that it's ever really gone back to normal since the pandemic, it kind of just actually, he took me by surprise the first time massively, because I was kind of just really in there, really enjoying the whole thing, like being like, I was so happy and we were just having a great time. And then suddenly he was just like, oh, this is getting, you know, it's getting a little bit too much. And I didn't really want to be in a relationship. And now I feel like I just need to step back. And we had this weekend where we like started the conversation on the Friday, and it was just a bit like, okay, wait, is this actually happening? And he came over to mine quite late at night on the Friday, and then he was like, right, let's cycle to mine. So we cycled across London at night together. It was so nice. I feel like we always went on such like adventures together. I never really did that with anyone else, but it felt like so, I don't know, big at that moment. Special. And then we ended up having this conversation on the Saturday where we were like, okay, cool. Well, maybe we do just need to take a break from each other. And I was kind of devastated, and I was a lot of tears. But at the same time, we kind of just decided to spend this last weekend together and like kind of make the most of it. And we had high sex for the first time. Like, he smokes a lot of weed, and it was like the first time I was like, you know what, I've wanted to try having sex whilst high. So we had this like the last time we had sex at that point, we had this incredibly deep
sesh,
big sesh, and then we on Sunday kind of, he walked me to one of, I think, was it London Bridge? I don't know, one of the bridges on the Thames, and we had like this final kind of like hug and goodbye and kiss on the bridge, and then I just went my separate way on my bicycle and cried my whole cycle home, just like, what the fuck has just happened?
Oh, and you poor thing. I can feel it in my soul. Like, right? I can feel it in my chest. It's so bad.
And then I just got home and crawled straight into bed and didn't get out for the rest of the day, because I was just like, what on earth just happened?
Yeah, and it's a physical feeling. Like, I can feel it now, and I can remember like what it's like. It's just so bad. I'm so sorry.
In the middle of the pandemic as well, I think that's what made it so kind of deep and heavy. And I'm not gonna lie, like, that plummeted me into a really bad time with my mental health. I got into quite like a deep depression in those months that we weren't together.
Yeah, that's really difficult. And I think in the pandemic as well, everything, like, your universe became so much smaller, you know, even just in your own house. Like, the little dramas around the house became so much bigger and so much more out of proportion, because we're kind of trying to deal with this tiny universe of being stuck in lockdown in your house, whereas like outside there's this massive universal problem going on with everyone at the same time.
Yeah.
It was really strange. It was like we felt connected to people in other countries and across the world that were getting ill, but then also trying to manage your relationships, your direct relationships with the people that you were allowed to, communicate with in person. It was such a strange experience, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I think it was still, the pandemic was still going on. So I remember just feeling so alone as well. And I didn't have like the distractions that I would usually have.
Yeah, exactly.
If I was going through a heartbreak, like I couldn't just get out of the country and travel because I like the time that so we got back together at the end of the year, and then we ended up breaking up again in August, which I knew was going to happen at some point. Like, and this time it was very much this was always going to happen because he wasn't ready for a relationship. And that time I was just like, I need to get out. And like we could actually travel at this point. So I got myself like to Croatia for a week, and I was just like, just trying to process, I think, everything that was happening. And what's funny is that I was listening to podcasts and journaling, and those were the things that were really helping me get through.
Yeah, I think podcasts really helped me. It was, do you know what it was? It was Elizabeth Day's podcast, and hearing about, because she has a podcast called How to Fail. I think like most people know about it. It's pretty massive. But yeah, she was talking about relationships on there with someone, and just hearing that other people, I think one of the things that helped me so much is just knowing that other people have gone through this too, and that, and hearing about friends that have been heartbroken and stuff. But then, like we were saying earlier, when you were saying that it doesn't get enough airtime and it gets glossed over, when someone tells you they've been broken up with like someone at work or whatever, and you haven't been through it, you're sort of just like, oh, that sounds hard or that sucks. But you don't realize what like the grief that they're going through, and like that they probably can't come into work, or they can't, go out and do things, like until you're actually feeling it, you're just like, oh shit, like this is really serious, like this is bad.
Yeah. I think that's probably how I was before
me too.
These heartbreaks, is that if someone was going for a breakup, I would just kind of equate it to the breakups that I went through when I was like a teenager or like in my early 20s. Even the weird thing is that I was in a 4.5-year relationship, and I lived with my partner. Yeah. And I wasn't even heartbroken after that when we broke up.
I think it comes from like the first time you get properly rejected as well. Because I think rejection is the main, it's the reason why heartbreak is so difficult. Because I think if you're the one, breaking it off for your own reasons or whatever, you might feel it, but it's that feeling of like complete hopelessness and rejection, and like there's absolutely nothing you can do to rectify the situation. That's the hard part. So I think for me, when I was living through the pandemic, I was living in like a small share house, and this guy moved in, and he kind of like showed me a new way of life. And like then I got sober for like 9 months because I was just struggling with alcohol during the pandemic loads. And we would do lots of things like what you were saying, like lots of adventures, and we'd go on walks on the canal, and we'd go on bike rides, and we'd go on hikes and all this like wholesome stuff. And I sort of like,
so similar.
and I sort of like fell in love with myself through doing those things, and like getting sober, and, realizing I have like all this stuff to offer and everything. And then I sort of like fell in love with this guy in the process, and I was living with him like in a house of 4 people. And then eventually we sort of ended up getting together, like friendship sort of like just grew into love and all those things. And like I was just like so in love and so happy, and I had this like idea of the future of how everything was going to look. And like I knew he was moving up north, sort of, when was it? It would have been, mid 2021 or early to mid 2021. And I was kind of like, that's okay. Like I'm in this for the long haul. We're best friends. We're in love. I'll move up north. And and I was like ready. And then he moved, and we tried to do long distance, and I thought it was going really well. And then one Sunday I get this text, and it's like, hey, Mads, I'm hoping to come to London today to have a chat. Are you free? And obviously when you get that text.
Oh, God, the let's have a chat.
Yeah, the feeling, like my heart sank, like my stomach flipped. I like instantly started crying. I was like, are we breaking up? Are we breaking up? I was like calling. I was like, I went a bit crazy. And then, he came down. We broke up. I do respect him a lot for like coming and doing it in person, but in a way I'm like, God, I wish that was on the phone or something, because it it was weird, like, because it happened in my room, in my house, in my new house, I felt a bit traumatized, like being in my house.
I had exactly the same thing with the most recent breakup. And like afterwards, the memories of the breakup just stick, they stay there.
Yeah, and it's just this pivotal moment where you're like, oh my God, I can't even be in this house. I feel so anxious.
Yeah.
And we had the same thing, like we went out onto the street and it's like the hug and the kiss goodbye, because it's like you don't want it to end, but at the same time you're like, get away from me. I need to just go and die now.
Like, oh my God. I definitely, on the last time, the proper breakup with this, I was not as good as you in this situation. I think we spent like from maybe like the morning, like around 10 to like 5 p.m. Discussing the breakup and like breaking up. And like I towards the end of it, I was like, please don't go, don't leave me, why are we doing this, don't go.
Yeah. And you get to this weird begging, it's like a weird begging stage and you're like, literally. I know this is pathetic, but I literally am at like, you're just scrambling for anything and you just start going like, please. And then you're like, oh, looking back, I'm just cringing. I'm like, how hard for that other person who's trying to do the right thing. Yeah. And you're just like, and even if you were to convince them, it's like, what then? Like, what right? Are they're just going to stay with you and be unhappy? Like, it's just so, you go through such weird things and like, you see people in movies doing it and you hear of your friends doing pathetic things or whatever and you're just like, oh, I would never be like that. But then when it push comes to shove and you're in it, it's so, you act so erratically. It's weird.
Yeah. Like this, it's like this kind of beast comes up inside you and it's just like this pure emotion and you can't stop it.
And it wants to protect you. Like it's trying to protect you from getting hurt. And it's like, I'll just do anything to stop feeling this bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I just went to my friend's house, my friend Sam, and I literally stayed there for like 3 nights in a row because I was like, I can't go home because every time I think about being in that room, I'm just like scared and I just didn't want to go back. But yeah. And then I think, that was that. And it was just so hard. And I think it was those feelings of like having no control and feeling like your future's been taken from you and feeling like you're spinning out of control and you don't know what's going to happen. Like it's all those feelings that are just so crazy and they make you act crazy and you just cry at random times and you're like, what is going on?
Literally, oh my God, I was so dramatic after that heartbreak. Same. I was literally walking around the streets. It was raining like really fucking hard and I was just I was walking around in the rain, like nobody else was on the street because it was torrential and like I was just bawling my fucking eyes out just like oh my days.
It's like being in a music video and you just literally walk around and pretend that you're in like some sort of sad Rihanna song or something. God, it's such a cliche, but it's cliches for a reason because everyone does this stuff.
Yeah. And to be fair, like I really felt like I needed that in that moment. Like I needed to just get all that emotion out in like an iconic way.
Iconic way. Like I hope someone's filming this because it's so iconic. Slay.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting though that you say that you're like you had that friend that you immediately went to. I remember texting my best friend just being like, we just broke up, and she was like, I'm coming, and she came over like in the next like I think she was there within the hour with ice cream, with my favorite matcha latte from the cafe downstairs.
Bless her.
And like she was like, look, we're gonna get through this together. And like I don't think I had ever felt so supported by anyone ever in my whole life. It was so nice.
And I think it's those friends as well that like you would be there for them and like it will happen to them as well. And I think it's just I felt so lucky. And I remember at times thinking like, imagine if you had no friends. What would you do?
Right?
Imagine you had no one. Imagine you had friends but no one who was like your person that would like let you ugly cry to them. Like what would I feel really bad if people are experiencing this and they don't have that support. But I guess that's where
there must be so many people that don't have that person.
Yeah, and that's when the darker sort of stuff comes in. Like that's where mental health and this sort of stuff goes hand in hand. And it's just it's terrifying. So I've got a few questions that I think will be good discussion points for us to sort of bounce off. So apart from the rejection, why do you think it is so difficult? Why is it so hard to go through a heartbreak?
So I've spoken a lot about heartbreak with my therapist, and it always kind of boils down to the fact that it taps into like all of our deepest vulnerabilities and basically our child selves. And we're kind of reliving a lot of, I guess it's just, yeah, we're reliving our past in a weird way, or like, you know, just our deepest vulnerabilities, which are like abandonment, being unwanted, being rejected. Like these are all the things as human beings that we like so deeply fear, especially when we've been in relationship, which quite often can get very codependent.
Yeah, and makes you feel very supported and safe and coddled and like all those things. I think, yeah, all those things that make you feel really safe. But then it's weird because you've felt safe before that. But it's like you've got this new idea of safety and what comfort is and stuff now that you've got that person. But then when it's gone, you're like, oh, the idea of being alone is just so shit. Like, but you've done it before, you know? It's just so strange how your universe can sort of shift and change based on who's around you.
Yeah, I think love's a drug as well, isn't it? So like when we basically do have a slight addiction to our partners, and like our brain is used to getting this serotonin like from hanging out with them, from being with them, from sex, from the intimacy, and suddenly like when that's cut off, you're basically in withdrawal and your brain's like, where's all this serotonin gone? Like this you need this. And this is why we get like, oh my god, shall I text them, shall I do this? Because our brain's like, come on, just feed me.
Yeah, you want that little hit, like when they send you a message, and then if they were to text you without you texting first, that's like the ultimate like serotonin boost, because your brain can go into overdrive thinking like, what does it all mean, blah blah blah. But of course they're missing you too, of course they want to text you as well, but it's just sometimes not the right thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And so there's kind of like these universal feelings I think everyone goes through, and they're different to the normal feelings of like grief or loss or sadness. It's sort of like these feelings like I was saying before, that you have no control over your future, or you feel like your future plans have changed, like whether you had holidays planned or Christmas plans or whatever, you feel like that's been ripped away from you without, you know, any control of your own.
Yeah.
And there's other feelings that are like when people are saying, oh, it's okay, you'll get over it soon or you'll move on soon. But it's almost like you don't want to move on sometimes because you still have this hope that it will be okay. And you're like, don't say nasty things about my ex-boyfriend. Like, I still love that person, you know?
Oh, that's so unhelpful when friends are saying really mean things about them. And you're just like, yeah, they were just in my life for like a really long time or even a short time, and I really liked them.
Yeah. And I still kind of hope somehow that we'll get back together, you know, like, and people are saying it's okay, you'll get over it soon, but you're like, but I don't want to get over it because that's sad. And the idea of being not in love with them is so sad.
Yeah, because it means that you've moved on, and it means that they're fully not in your life anymore, and that can be so hard to digest because if you're really in love with someone, you don't want to let them go.
Yeah, exactly, because the idea of letting them go is sort of the final step towards not being with them.
The hardest step out of all of them.
Is there any other feelings that you can think of that anyone who's going through a heartbreak might be having, those weird sort of universal feelings?
I mean, I think the weird thing is that you can link it to grief in such like a loss of a life and other types of grief. So I think like that is just something that goes with heartbreak, and you're going through all the same stages of grief basically as if someone died, which is kind of crazy. And sometimes, I mean, people say this, sometimes it feels worse than if someone died because you're like, they're still out there and they don't want me. They chose this.
Like they're just out there living their life, and like you wonder, it's like wondering like, what are they doing? Like, are they, you know, talking to other people? I remember one of my friends went up north to visit her family, and she came back and she was like, oh, I saw your ex on the weekend just walking down the street. And I was like, oh, okay, like who was he with? And she was like, just a friend. And I was like, was it a girl? And she was like, yeah. And I was like,
oh God.
And it's like, oh my God, he's really out there. He's really out there like living his life, and he's probably
Yeah.
like, and then you do stuff like this is so tragic, but I paid for Hinge Premium to change my location to where I know he lives so I could see if he was on Hinge. And I know that's insane because it's like £30. And obviously I requested a refund from Apple, but like, like, no, Mads, don't be doing that. It's toxic.
Oh, I definitely went through a stage where I used Field dating app, and I was like literally just swiping through everyone to see if I could find him. Like, are you here? Are you
Are you here? Are you trying to hook up? And people don't even have their face on there. So you end up looking at people's torsos and you're like, is that your torso? Like, I don't recognize it.
Oh man, I never did find him on there, which I'm kind of glad for.
It's so good. It's so good when you don't see them, but then you're still like, maybe I haven't swiped for long enough.
Yeah. I mean, I had this weird, like, I had this deep kind of sense this weekend, weirdly, that I'm like, because I saw my ex last week for the first time. We hung out as friends, and it was really, really nice. But then I think I got in my head again a little bit, and then this weekend I was just like, he's not reached out at all since we chatted, and and it's just like, I'm like, you're seeing someone.
Yeah, you're overthinking, and now you're overthinking it. It's like, is it worth it? Is it worth hanging out?
And also, if he probably is seeing someone, and that's totally fine too. But damn, that hurts.
Yeah, and you just want to be the one who's better off. Like, you just want to be like, I'm doing so good. Yeah. Maybe just a little bit better than you.
I mean, I feel like I am in so many other ways. It's just
look at you go. You're writing a book.
Look at me go.
Look at you go.
I don't need them.
And also, this has helped you to write the book. So really,
exactly,
like, it's all for the best.
Yeah, he's just, sparked. I could be. Yeah, he sparked a lot of things, and I think he has been the source of help and healing for so many other people.
But not for you, sadly.
Yeah, fuck him.
I think there is a point where you have to look back and be like, I really was changed for the better, or like can't try and realize the good things that you saw in that relationship. Because I think, like I was saying earlier, when I realized that like I'd sort of fallen in love with myself again, and I had the courage to like start the podcast, and then it was really successful, and all those things I wouldn't have done without him. So I'm like, okay, maybe things do happen. I hate the saying things happen for a reason, because things just happen because they fucking happen. Like, shit happens all the time. But I think if you can look for meaning in things, especially when you're grieving, looking for meaning in either a person's life or a relationship that you had, that can be part of the healing process too.
I feel exactly the same way. Like, he really helped me find myself during like the pandemic and all those adventures, and just being like, oh, I am the sort of person that can do this. Yeah. And like, it opened up so many different ways of thinking, and he really checked me sometimes, which was so valuable. And inspired me, and so many amazing things. So when we saw each other last week, actually, we reminisced about that, and we were like, we really did that for each other, and we really got each other through like the worst parts of the pandemic. Like,
which is what we needed.
Yeah.
You needed someone to be doing that with you. Like, I mean, I've found that in a housemate and a boyfriend. It was very lucky.
Yeah,
but it was also, I mean, obviously it ended badly, but at the time it was just, you could kind of just hung on to whatever you could to get through all the weird stuff going on around us.
Yeah, but we both changed in such like a great way. Like, I think both of us have really experienced that kind of butterflying after a breakup, where, we can look at it and see the good in it and the healing. And like, when you really take time and heal yourself and really look within, it's so worth it, because you're just going to be so much more prepared for life.
Absolutely.
After heartbreak.
And everyone sort of says to heartbroken people things like, it's going to be okay, or time will help, and like, it's all true. But what sort of tangible advice would you offer to someone who's really going through it? And this was a question from my friend who is going through it. So we need to sort her out.
So Yeah, I would definitely say, like, this is probably a really annoying thing to say as well, though. Like, you have to feel it. Like, you have to sit there with your grief and get all those fucking emotions out.
Yeah.
And being with that dark self. And I think that kind of means kind of not relying on distractions and not just getting straight back out there and really being with yourself and reconnecting with who you are. But more kind of like tangible, practical things, I would say journaling really, really helped me through my whole heartbreak. First of all, I started with like video journals, and then I started writing things down. Actually started with writing down like lists, and because at the time I was just like, how am I going to be happy? He was like, I was like, he's the only thing that makes me happy.
Oh, bless you. That's so hard.
I sat there with a list that was just like the happy list. Okay, like what can I write down? And I was like, okay, I'll write like really small things. I was like, you know, when I water my plants and my plants grow.
We are so similar, it's weird. Like, I literally was looking after this cheese plant, and cheese plants can't die. And I was just I would like polish its leaves. I'm like, okay, I can't eat healthily today. I can't get out of bed. I can't do this. I'm just going to polish the cheese plant.
Yes.
And that is enough for today.
For sure. And just like writing all those small things. And then like, and then I wrote like an action list for the happy things. So like if getting a new tattoo would make me happy, then why don't I book in getting a new tattoo? Like all of those kind of things. Like if you like going on countryside walks, just get yourself out on a walk. I know it's not doable for a lot of people, but like a big thing for me was getting out of the country and like being by myself. And whether that's just getting out of your house or visiting somewhere new, local,
even just getting to like the hills or like getting to the countryside, you know, I think getting out of London for a day, even to the seaside, I feel like that really helps, like down to Brighton or something. It's just so nice, get some fresh air, because it's a bit of you get in the bubble in London, and it's very like it's very hectic, and you can just hear people arguing outside your house. I mean, I live in North London, and people just yell at each other in the street. And I'm like, you're stressing me out. Like, I need to get away from you.
Yeah. For me, I had to kind of realize like what life could offer.
Oh, yeah, that's such a good way to put it.
Because I was just like, well, you know, I can't see what good life is without him, you know? So I had to get out there, see like the beauty in the world. So I went to Croatia, which was really nice. I just went there for a week, and I took my mum with me. So that was good. Although she wasn't great emotional support, because whenever I spoke about it, she would start crying as well. And we both sit there crying because she was like, I feel your pain. She was like, he was so nice.
Oh God.
Like,
yes. It is weird how that happens. Like, I think now that I'm helping my friend go through a breakup, and then when she was helping me go through this breakup, you sort of get triggered and like remember the feelings of your own breakup. And like there was times when Sam would say to me like, I just need a minute, like, and like you have to kind of give your friends that space as well to be vulnerable and feel their feelings, and you can't drain them too much. Like, you can't be a vampire friend. You need to give them some space, even when you're feeling like, no, I can't go home, like just one more night. And she was like, no, this is starting to trigger me. You need to go. And I was like, okay, fair enough. You know,
well, something that really helped me was doing voice memos as if I was voice noting my ex. So it was like all the things that I wanted to say to him but couldn't say. I would just sit there, and I would literally record like 20 minutes of like me just talking to him, but not talking to him.
It's like a whole podcast episode dedicated especially to him.
And they're all on my phone somewhere, which is hilarious.
Oh God. I think in terms of advice, this is what someone said to me. And you know when someone says one little quote and you're like, oh my God, that's going to be my mantra to get through this.
Yeah.
And so she said, when life feels like it's saying no, it's actually saying not yet, or something better is coming.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, because that kind of allows you to feel that hope that they're going to change their mind. But then it's sort of like, by the time that they might, or whenever that time comes, like something new and something better is already on the way. So it's like, it's kind of like everything is going to be fine, you know?
Yeah, it isn't everything's going to be fine moment.
Yeah,
because
it's
it is
such a nice quote.
like,
It is,
I think
yeah.
that's the hardest part about heartbreak, is that it feels like nothing. It feels like you're never gonna not feel that pain anymore.
Yeah, it does. And it's,
you really do get there. And I think as long as you're doing, like, as long as you're sitting there with your feelings and really figuring shit out, and oh my God, get a therapist, because they help so much during a heartbreak.
Yeah.
You're gonna get to a point where you're like, oh fuck, I don't hurt today.
Yeah, and you have a day where you don't cry and you're like,
Yeah.
yes, that was good. And whether it takes 2 weeks or 3 months, it's like, it's going to happen.
And there'll be weeks where you're suddenly like, oh shit, I haven't thought about my ex for a whole week.
Then you're thinking about a new person.
Well, not even.
Or no one.
Sometimes not even that though. I think I got through. I had like 2 months where I didn't have sex or date anyone, and then when I went to LA for 3 months to like really focus on my healing, and then I kind of dated and like hooked up with people for like 2 months whilst I was there, and then I got to this point I was like, actually, I just need to do this by myself now. And I was like, there needs to be a healing, like a big healing with the codependency and not needing anyone and just being happy by myself.
Yeah, and that takes time. It just takes time. And like, it doesn't even take, I mean, you know, journaling and therapy and all those things are good, but I think it just takes time being by yourself and learning to enjoy things on your own.
Yes.
That's the best thing you can do for that.
Do things that you enjoy solo, like go on a walk by yourself, go hiking, go to the beach by yourself, like all the things that you might have done with someone else, but enjoy it solo.
Or even just reconnecting with friends. Like, I think I'm someone who can neglect friends in a relationship, like unintentionally, but I just get so wrapped up in my own relationship. But the thing I've found in the last year is just I've got such good friends and I just love spending time with them. I love, like, we went to Whitstable on the weekend and like the whole thing, we're just laughing, like pissing ourselves laughing the whole time. I'm like, I'm sorry, if I was here with a guy, I would not be pissing myself laughing out of control like all day. Do you know? Like, it's so good to just reconnect with your friendships and like strengthen those bonds as well. And that helps you to realize that it's fun to be alone too, because being alone doesn't mean being alone.
Exactly. I definitely had that realization of how important friends were as well. And really felt into all of that as well, and just felt so grateful to have such amazing people around me.
And I think if you're out there listening and you don't have those strong friendships, like there's things you can do to sort of meet new people and get out there. And like I've definitely done episodes in the past with like friend dates. So if there's someone that you like are in touch with on social media that, you know, you haven't actually met in person yet because of the pandemic or whatever, like reach out to them and just, this is the time. If you're not putting energy into a romantic relationship, put it into a friendships. Like 100%. Just build them up.
Go on dates with your friends and dates with yourself.
In terms of like the worst advice you've heard on healing from a heartbreak, what would you say are some of the worst things you can do? Because I think people throw around a lot of advice when you're going through something because they just kind of want you to stop talking about it, or, you know, it's just their own experience with it. And I think for me, it's the whole, to get over someone, you have to get under someone else. I think that is just so toxic.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think the hoe phase can be really beneficial in some ways, but it's when you're ready. Like, I don't think it's
force yourself.
I don't think it's a healthy thing to do straight after if you're really fucking hurting. Like, I don't think that getting underneath someone straight away is good, because I think it stops you from feeling the feelings. It will be a distraction ultimately. And I think distractions, I think people do this as well when their friends are heartbroken. They're like, let's just go out and get drunk and go party, and they just try and distract you. And whilst that could help in the short term, it's just going to prolong the healing. And you might, and if you do just like move on straight away and find a new boyfriend, you're going to be in exactly the same situations, or girlfriend or partner. You're going to find yourself in exactly the same situation you were before. You'll be replaying out all the same patterns. And ultimately, you're not going to have learned about yourself. And it's just so sad, because I feel like heartbreaks, even though they're so hard, it's almost a gift because you learn so much about yourself through the healing process.
Yeah.
And it's so valuable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, like you said, it's all just things to numb the pain, but it's all temporary. Like whether it is like finding that relief through like sex with other people, or whether it's through alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, it's a temporary relief of a long-term ongoing problem. And I actually went through this whole breakup sober, which was insane.
Yeah.
I stayed sober for like 4 months after, but then the Euros were on in England and I was at Box Park and I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to test out drinking and stuff. And now I've kind of found a nice balance. But
that's good.
It really like propelled my healing and like skyrocketed my healing, because I wouldn't numb the pain all night, then wake up with the crushing anxiety, doubled with a hangover, doubled with whatever.
Yes.
It was like I was just constantly feeling it and like living in that feeling, which was really helpful. And obviously I'm not going to, tell people to go sober when they're going through a breakup, because that would just be fucked up. But it was super helpful, like to try and spend time, sober, feeling my feelings and sitting with them.
It's worth recognizing the fact that alcohol is a depressant. So even though it might temporarily make you feel a little bit better, in the long run it's going to make you feel worse.
Yeah, 100%. And do you think it's wise to stay in touch with an ex? And then in terms of like the best time to block them or unfollow them, like I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
So for me, I would 100% suggest that people go contactless, like as pretty much as soon as possible.
Yeah,
because I think when you do still have contact, you basically just are holding on to what you had in some way, in some shape or form. Like I was listening to this podcast when I was going through my heartbreak, and they were talking about going into a silence container. And I was like, I really liked the wording of that, because it felt safe and it felt like something that I was going to leave at some point as well. Like it wasn't a forever thing. So yeah, I kind of immediately went into that kind of thing with my ex, and I think that was really beneficial for both of us, was to literally just have zero contact. But I think in terms of all of these advice things as well, is you really do have to go with your gut, because those times where you're feeling like, oh, I really want to text them, I really want to do this, there's always like a little voice in the back of your head being like, that's ultimately not a good idea, this is bad for you. Or maybe there is something that you need to get clarity on.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need to do what you need to do. Like you need to make your own mistakes. You need to learn. You need to And I think in terms of blocking or unfollowing your ex, sometimes it is just a case of when you're ready, because you can force yourself into it, but then you're just going to find yourself, you've got your Finsta or your private account, and then you're not looking and you feel bad for doing that and all these things. I think I've gotten to the point where I just don't look at it, even though I haven't unfollowed them, because I know that I can, but if I'm exercising the self-restraint, I feel good about it.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point eventually where I'm like, okay, I don't need that person anymore, and I unfollow them and all of their friends, and I'm sort of like, okay, that's done, but I don't need to check.
For me, there's a setting on Instagram where you can just mute people so that they don't come up in your stories and you don't see their feed posts, but you don't have to unfollow them. So like you can still be each other's friends, because I think quite a lot of the time, like when we do break up with someone, it's not like you literally want to delete them from your life forever. Like
and the thought of that is quite traumatic in itself, because you're like, oh god, I'm losing this whole friend and this whole person.
Exactly. So I think muting, I would say mute them immediately, to be honest.
I love the mute. I just like forgot about the mute. I'm gonna have to bring the mute back.
Yeah, but and also I think obviously the mute is great, but sometimes you don't have the restraint not to like look at their profile if you find yourself consistently going back to their profile, then I would block them.
But then it's so hard, because it's like I feel like I would find a way, like I would just find a way anyway. Like you can block them, but then I'd be like to my friend, oh, I'm in your story, like, can you check if that person's watched your story? Like, I get weird. Like, I go FBI mads and it's just bad.
Yeah. One of the things that I really missed when we broke up was not seeing their name in the people that had watched my stories.
Because that's what you check for, and that gives you that little serotonin boost again. That's like that little thing when you're like, ding, that feels good.
Yeah, you're looking at me.
Yeah, and they're probably just skipping through anyway, like not even looking.
Yeah, they're just like, swipe.
We're so up ourselves. We're
literally,
like,
they're like, oh, they're like, well, they're listening on every single word that I say.
Yeah, and I'm so like cultured and, well spoken and all these things. Oh, God. So just in wrapping up, how can we possibly stay hopeful of falling in love again when heartbreak is just so hard? And like, do you think it is all worth it?
Oh, it is. Like, love is the best feeling in the whole world. Like, imagine going through life and never falling in love again.
Yeah, depressing.
Sometimes I feel like we need to feel pain to feel the happiness, or, to recognize the love and happiness that we do have in life. So almost, where there is great love, there's also going to be great pain. And I don't think that you can get around that. But at least you're really living into the whole human experience.
Yeah, we could just feel numb all the time, but it would be no fun.
How boring would that be?
There'd be no podcast content ever.
Yeah, so. Exactly. I think there's like a point as well where people are just ready again. And I think it's just kind of believing that you deserve that. You really do deserve that.
I completely agree. Oh, well, Florence, you've been such a good guest. I've really enjoyed this ep, and I feel like
so fun.
It was so much fun, and I feel like I am really grateful that I'm over my ex and I can talk about it in a way that will hopefully help other people listening out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you so much.
It's going to help so many people. And you'll have to come on my new podcast as well.
Oh, I would love to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my chat with the lovely Florence and the season finale. Please let me know on my Instagram. It's at madsworld.mp3 or my website, madsworld.co, if you have any stories or thoughts of your own to share. Love and elbow taps. Peace.